Hello, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. So good to be here with you today. I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today, and as I was setting this up to schedule the event, this phrase came to me. First, it started with prayer, then, religion, yoga, and oneness. Because I just finished a 3-part blog. I did over 3 separate blogs all on the same subject, on the subject of prayer. And if you haven't read it, it's on my site, gpwalsh.com. You can go check it out in the blog section. And interestingly enough, and the reason I threw religion and yoga in there is because they both those 2 words actually have the same meaning. Our word religion derives from it's Latin? Yes, I think it's a Latin word, religio, which means to unite, to bind, right? The word yoga is a Sanskrit word, which means to yoke, to bind. They actually have the same meaning. At the heart of all religious practices and spiritual practices, whether it be meditation or yoga or some kind of energy thing, the intent is always the same. It is to get a sense of unity, of oneness with something bigger than oneself. That's the heart of the religious experience. The recognition that there's something way bigger going on than I can possibly even fathom, let alone understand. Now, for some, that fills us with fear, and we imagine that something out there is demanding, is requiring things of us, is handing out blessings or cursings, mostly cursings, a few blessings, that it has to be appealed to so that the crops will grow and we'll have babies and there will be water and food in abundance. And when that doesn't happen, we have some appeal, right? We have some appeal to this power. We can try to compensate. Well, it must be something we did. So if we're only better, or follow the rules better, or make more rules, or do some kind of ritual or enactment, that we're going to win the favor of this malevolent, all-powerful being. Now that is, of course, the idea of the divine, of God, that persists to this day in the Abrahamic religions. For some strange twist of history, that version of God has completely dominated most of the world. Christianity being the largest religion in the world at this point, at this time, although it is shrinking. But there's a whole other different view that doesn't get much airtime. There's a notion that what we're actually binding with, what we're seeking to unite with, is not a malevolent being, not something controlling nature, not a manipulative character who is basically manipulating history to please some kind of warped sense of humor, which is what it appears to be. But something far more intimate, far more personal, far more in here. And so, as we trace this kind of, you might call it an evolution of consciousness from this most primitive, and I got to point out that not all of what we call primitive had that point of view. If you look at Native American culture and a lot of other cultures that are Aboriginal, they didn't see it as as a malevolent being that they had to appeal to. They saw something far more intimate. They saw woven into everything that we experience, everything we see and touch. It's like an invisible hand that was immanent in it, not separate from it and judging it or doling out blessings, but was actually that this was, in fact, the face of this mysterious, unknowable essence, the Great Spirit. For also some strange twist of history, that view got pushed to the side, got pushed down, because, well, one can just assume that the other view of God creates cultures that are far more aggressive, far more arrogant and condescending, far less tolerant, right? That they would walk all over the so-called nature religions, considering themselves superior. So I guess you could understand that would why that would happen. The Aboriginal cultures tended to be matriarchal. That is, there was an equality between the genders. The gods were both masculine and feminine. That essence, that essential force, was neither masculine nor feminine, but gave rise to both. And so property was owned by women. That was the community. It was a very different world than what evolved, and became lopsided towards the masculine qualities. Women became secondary. They became possessions. They became property. It's it's fascinating to see. What I see it as the evolution of the appearance of the true nature of the egoic mind. It is self-centered. It is completely self-defined. It is aggressive. It is cruel. It can't see the world through any lens but itself. Now, prayer, religion, yoga is an attempt to go beyond that mind, to find a place that is above and beyond, superior to. I don't even know the words to describe it. It's an intuitive sense that there's something bigger, there's something more. And this appeared in all the traditions, even the Western traditions, that in what's known as mysticism. This sense of a seeking of union with God, of binding with God, of becoming one with the ultimate being. Now, they didn't have to do that in the Aboriginal religions because they already saw it. That was the case. Right? It was this God, this essence, this Great Spirit was immanent in all things. This is also the case in much of the Eastern religions. Whereas in the Western thought, there was this separation. So religion, yoga, and the tool of prayer. Prayer in some traditions, meditation, contemplation in others, was an attempt, and a valid one, and in many cases a successful one, of seeing through the illusion of this sense of self, of the ego, and the God that it had created to justify its own position. I mean, if you look at Yahweh, the God of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, it is the ego. It is the egoic mind on steroids, completely self-oriented, making all the rules, completely arbitrary, wrathful, doling out punishment, everything to serve itself. And the great offense was somebody in heaven who didn't like the idea of constantly serving this overinflated ego. which I think is actually kind of funny. But at any rate, before I get too lost in that, prayer is, set aside all of the pomp and circumstance, all of the ritual, all of the formalization of it, and try to just get to the essence, the sentiment of prayer, the energy behind it, the motivation behind it. And you find, all the words aside, there's this deep desire to connect with that mysterious something that we all intuitively know is there, but it seems out of our grasp. This is that desire, inspired by that which we're reaching for, by the way. But can you see that religious sentiment, the motivation of prayer, if brought into religion, if brought into self-inquiry, if brought into all the yoga practices that we have, if that desire, transcending just my own personal benefit, right, in yoga getting better health, and meditation relieving stress, and prayer getting what I want, or attracting what I want from the universe, if all of that's set aside with just instead this desire to know what's true, to know the true nature of life, to transcend the human ego and touch that from the source from which all life has come. Imagine the transformative power that would have over all of these other kinds of practices. And even psychological practices, right? Even, if you're a therapist, imagine if that was the motivation. If consciously that was the motivation. That it became a prayer. That you were engaged with somebody to liberate them from the egoic mind, which is the source of all problems. It would be quite extraordinary. It would infuse, it would animate absolutely everything we do. So if we see prayer not as a formal request of some super being to take, to do something on my behalf, and instead recognize it for our deep desire to know what is true, to know ourselves as we are, to know the ultimate mystery of the universe intimately, personally, it will have a profound impact on everything you do. It becomes the single most motivation. It is the desire for union. It's the true seeking. It's the true path. So enough about that. For now, I will. I'm going to let that go for now. Take a sip of my morning beverage, and say hello to everyone. Oh, I forgot my apple cider vinegar in that. So, hello Rosario, hello Ursula, John, Ireland, Portugal, Madrid, Poland, hello Eva, Robbie in Romania, hello Diane, hello Babaji and everyone, namaste. It is so good to be here in this moment with you all. I look forward each week to these powerful teachings. Oh, I do too. Hello, Facebook user. Hello, Jay. Hariom. Hello, Robert. South Wales. Good to see you here. Sally. Oops, jumped ahead. In Southeast England. Hello, Sally. GP. Does self-compassion enhance the separate self-identity? Also, what's the difference between self-pity and self-compassion? Thanks. Well, I don't think I need to explain the difference between self-pity and self-compassion, because you can feel it, can't you? Right? Everything has a distinct energetic signature, I kind of like to call it. It has a vibe, right? We can feel the difference between something that's authentic and something that's inauthentic. Something that is simply, oh, woe is me, and something is take care of me. We have to acknowledge our humanness. We have to have compassion and tenderness and understanding of our humanness, of the nature of the human being, the human self, and its human needs. We can't discard those. When I find that for whatever reason I've not been doing that, I'm in situations where I'm not being taken care of, my needs are not being acknowledged, my value is not being acknowledged. Oftentimes we can just kind of fall into this place of, well, woe is me. Well, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it's always been. Now that always has at its origin the sense of powerlessness that comes with a child. If we were treated that way, without respect, without being valued, always being criticized or demeaned in some way, even subtly, we're going to get this feeling that this is where we are and this is who we are, and we don't deserve anything better than that. Out of that is going to grow a sense of hopelessness that is ripe for self-pity, for feeling like you're a victim. Because the fact of the matter is that you were pitiable when you were a kid. You were victimized. It's happened to so many. I mean, the horror stories I hear when I work with people individually, and sometimes it comes out in groups as well. We've had centuries of the most horrific abuse, right? All justified by cultural and religious ideas. The children have just been so horribly mistreated, just kind of pushed into a corner of just zero self-respect, zero self-love, that self-valuing becomes extremely difficult to do. And when there's a sense of hopelessness of there, it almost inevitably sinks into pity, but you can feel the difference, can't you? Right? The sense of hopelessness, whereas a sense of compassion is simply a recognition of a simple, obvious fact. I need to feel valued. Of course, if my environment isn't doing that, it's hard for me to do it. If I've been taught to devalue myself, it's going to be hard for me to regain that territory. Right? But that's the task. That's the task at hand. Now, the other question: does it enhance the separate self-identity? No, it doesn't. Something I always like to point out, that it is actually easier to let go of the ego if there is a sense of worth in the individual. We have to remember that the ego, the false sense of identity, it gets attached to something. Right? If I'm full of self-pity and feeling like a victim, that is the ego. Right? That is how it has identified itself. It is. We often think of ego in terms of egotism or conceit, but it isn't. It's simply identity. It is the sense of identity, the sense in us, the sense of self, that for some reason needs to identify with something. Well, the reason is very simple. You cannot function in the world without some sense of identity. You have to become somebody, right? So I like to point out, if you don't have a sense of identity and you walk into a 35 flavor ice cream, you're not going to know which ones to pick. Right now, you walk in and there's 35 flavors, but you don't sit there and go, oh, this, no, that. There's a couple that you're interested. They're kind of the go-to ones. They came with the territory of that sense of identity. Now, it's not fixed, and over time that could change and be different ones. So there's nothing fixed about that sense of identity, right? But it's necessary. Having a strong sense of self, that is a healthy sense of self, is essential to being able to function in the world. If it doesn't happen, and I've known people who were severely hindered in that way, That's what schizophrenia is, as far as I understand it, where the sense of identity does not develop for whatever reason, usually because of a lot of abuse, because I'm not allowed to be anything. I'm forever criticized, and like a sense of identity has nowhere to go. And so it becomes just kind of amorphous. It becomes this, and then it becomes that, and it's whoever you're with, you're taking on those characteristics just to get some kind of attention, and it's a pitiable place to be in. So there's a certain amount of strengthening of oneself that comes as part of this spiritual journey. I've never known of anybody who's gone from the madness of schizophrenia to awakening, although they're very close. they're very close, but one is out of control and one is in control. to come to the sense that I am not anything, that any identity I take on is not real, it's not authentic, it's not the final word. For the one who has never had any kind of strength, it becomes a clutching. For the sage, it becomes simply being able to become somebody and let it go, become and let it go, become and let it go, and never being stuck in an identity. You can see it's similar, but very, very different. There's a strength in there that the ego is transcended, not destroyed. In a sense, it's destroyed in that it disappears, but it's transcended. And so now we see that the sense of identity is just a function of life. And if I show up with my granddaughter, I'm grandpa. If I show up here, I'm the teacher. If I show up, I don't know, at the grocery store, I'm a shopper. Right? None of those define me. But if I show up at the grocery store, I go, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I like this. Oh, this is good today. Right? Those are all choices being made. All of those revolve around a particular sense of identity. If I believe that identity to be me, rather than simply a set of feelings and interests and preferences in the moment, I've created the ego and now I'm stuck. If I just see it as circumstances and preferences and transient temporary things that are there in that moment, I'm not stuck. And an ego never solidifies. So the ego gets stuck in self-pity. There's no ego in compassion. Matter of fact, we can have compassion for somebody stuck in their ego because it's causing suffering. So I hope that answers it for you, Sally. I do hope that the most important thing is cultivating a sense, an intuitive sense, that can energetically distinguish the difference. Because the ego is pretty good at imitating. Right? It can actually be engaged in self-pity and calling it compassion. Oh, I'm just taking care of myself. Right? I mean, there can also be arrogance. Right? So it's a kind of a subtle sense that's cultivated over time. And the thing that makes it cultivated is the desire for it. It's simply the desire to be who you are, the desire to intimately know the truth of your own being, and thus the being of everybody else. That sincere desire is a prayer, right? That's reaching out to some place beyond yourself, and it will cultivate everything you need to be able to distinguish the difference until it's just intuitive. You just know. That's true, that isn't. That's genuine, that's not. That's loving, that's not. And it just kind of happens naturally. So, thank you for that. Kasa Chorapan, they knew about awareness of the ego. I'm not really sure what you're referring to there. They knew. I guess they knew about awareness of the ego. If you're talking about the sages of the past, those that actually discerned the true meaning of prayer and religion and yoga and the like, then yes, they did. They are aware of they were aware of the nature of the ego because they had become free of it, and they were aware of the nature of awareness itself. Matter of fact, they knew themselves as awareness. This is the union that is sought in ego and in religio. Numina. Hello, Numina. This is Suze. Oh, I can't make it live tonight. I'll watch the replay. Love you. Numino. Numina. Suze. Wow. You have so many names. Sean. I miss asking questions here. I mean, I have questions, but can't formulate them coherently lately. But I really still enjoy watching your satsangs. Thanks again for everything you do. Wow. I love hearing that, actually, because there is a point at which there's a feeling that something's missing. There's a feeling, I don't know it all, but you can't articulate it. You can't put it into the form of a question, which means that the quest, the seeking has gone beyond the mind. Right? It can't really articulate itself in the kind of discursive intellect that we could at one time, when we could talk about a fine point of non-duality. Right? That's fine. There's a place for that, but there's something then that it kind of goes beyond it. It's very hard to articulate. It's very hard to articulate. It's just kind of this sense. It's an intuitive sense that I'm not quite there yet, but I don't know exactly what it's about. What I invite you to do is to notice that that is a question. That sense that I'm not quite there yet. Pay attention to that. Take a step back. Right? If the truth is true, it's true at all times, and it's true in all places, and it's true now. Right? So it's not really possible that you aren't there yet. Right? Which means there's this whole state of mind going on, this assumption that I am not there. Which sets in motion this energy of seeking, of trying to find it, right? And that becomes the quest or the question. But is that actually true? It's the wave traveling all over the world looking for the ocean. It is the ocean. Even that sense of arising of I'm not there yet is arising out of that is the wave. Right? Now, put all of your attention on that which is aware of it. Is it actually true? Is it possible for you to be anything other than what you are? Okay, if it's not, then any thought that says it is can't possibly be true. And this is the practice. We are retraining the mind out of its habit of assuming you are not the self. And under that assumption, it then goes looking for the self, and it tries this and that, and has various kinds of techniques, all because the underlying assumption, the mind just simply cannot question. Well, of course I'm not it. If I was it, then, and it's got this nice little checklist of what it should look like if I'm if I'm an awakened being. An awakened being. There is no awakened being. There is only the awakened one. And you are that one. So really look at this closely, right? Don't buy the picture the mind has created for you. Right? Because what it has created is a version of you that is not the self, and that's not possible. You cannot be anything other than what you are. And to be is being, it is truth, it is sat, it is what is, it is reality. And that cannot change, it cannot fluctuate, it cannot come and go. The truth of you cannot be the truth at some point of you. It must be the truth now. So we're dispelling ignorance. We're not establishing truth. It's already established. We're dispelling ignorance. And when ignorance is dispelled, where does it go? Nowhere. It's gone. Because it never was. It was never a real thing. It was simply a self-constituted mistake. So you're digging into a place beyond questions, where the question is your life. So to live in that question is to dispel the question. Wonderful. Love it, Sean. Love it. Yvonne says, I need healing in my body. Become a friend to your body. When people ask me about physical healing and spiritual insight and non-duality and the like, it is of course possible. But it's not primary. Everything that happens in our body is the result of energetic patterns, belief systems, underlying assumptions about the nature of life, about the nature of being and the nature of ourselves. It's been shown quite dramatically, and if you're interested in researching it, you can start with the books by Gabor Mate, a medical doctor who has gone into this quite in depth, that you can trace a direct line between any of the major diseases that we suffer from in our modern world and early childhood trauma. There's a direct connection. And this is not speculative, this is not, woo-woo science, this is not alternative medicine. These are studies by, Harvard and Stanford, that show the direct connection. This is not controversial in the medical community. It is denied. It is ideologically rejected, mostly because of the pharmaceutical control over the industry, and also simply because of the long-standing ideology in it. So what the healing that is needed in our bodies, it is a sign of a deeper healing needed in our hearts. Now, I'm not trying to discount the discomfort or the difficulty that having a physical ailment can bring. I've had a few of my own lately that I never had before, and I know the effect that it can have. But to look for the cause of it in the right place is the insight that spirituality brings. I also encourage people to eat properly, exercise, do all the things that you need to do. Get rid of toxic foods, get rid of all processed foods. And really give the body the nutrition that it needs. Right? Now, all of that aside, putting that aside, we look, what is the body trying to tell me in this? When I've got something going on in my body, we can see it as simply a physiological condition, which is how most the mainstream medicine sees it. Or we can see it as a symptom of an energetic disruption, something is out of whack in the energy, and the energy is more subtle. I'm not talking about what most people think of as the physical energy. I'm talking about the intelligence of the system that has been so artfully and intelligently navigating life, responding to the environment, and doing its best to keep the organism functioning and alive in an environment that is for the most part hostile to it. This starts as a child when we're simply not allowed to be who we are. When our who we are is simply not accepted by our parents, that's a hostile environment. And it happens to all of us to a certain degree. To some it's extreme, to some it's milder, but it happens to all of us. Nobody's ever completely accepted for who they are. It can't be, because who you are is bigger than any culture or parental system can possibly handle, because that's what happened to everybody along the way. So everybody along the way had their world confined to this. The child comes along, and their world isn't this. The world is this. And it's the parents' job and the culture's job to squeeze them down and keep them back, keep them in there, which means all of this has been cut out. This is the essential trauma. This is the existential trauma. And our identity forms around this. But this kind of trauma leaves its mark, right? There's all these parts of us that want to express and can't. And they will take the form of emotional disturbance. They can affect our finances, our relationships, our careers, our interactions with things. And it can also appear as physical conditions in our body. So while I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling somebody what to do to not get medical care or anything like that, I look at it from the point of view that there's something going on in there. There's some energy within you that wants to express itself and can't, and has been compressed into something that is now actually difficult for the body to handle, because it was never supposed to be stuck there. It was supposed to be moving. Right? And so I just start with, what are you trying to tell me? First off, shifting the relationship between it's a problem I've got to get rid of, to it's a voice I need to listen to. A complete shift in the relationship. It's no longer my enemy. Okay, we are stuck in this position. You had to get into that position for some reason. I don't know what the reason is, but I know that underlying it was the need to keep me alive, keep me safe, and this is the form it eventually took. So now it's like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? What is it? What am I being protected from? Again, this is a place where I would use EFT as a means of helping the body to kind of free up that space and allow that energy to move. But that, in general, is how I approach it with physical healing. I don't see physical healing as any different than emotional healing or psychological healing. The body is simply a different vibrational frequency than everything else. There's no difference in substance between a thought, an emotion, and a sensation. They are all the same. They are all exactly the same substance. It is like light. Light vibrating at one speed gives you red light. At another speed, it gives you violet light, and everything in between. The energy of life vibrating at one speed gives you the body. Another speed gives you emotions. Another gives you thought. Another gives you the world around you. And of course, that vibration of the body and the world are one. That first chakra energy is everything. Right? It is not in the body. It is the body and everything else. This chair I'm sitting in. It is the vibration of life at the level at which form takes place. And because it is a vibration, it is a flow, it means that the restoration of the proper flow is what is perceived on this level as healing. So, in essence, I could even go so far as to say there is no physical. There is only this vibrational. Physical is a concept. There's no body. There's only experience of sensation. I don't want to get too carried away with that. Because primarily, when you're dealing with healing, you're creating a space in which whatever needs to happen can happen. And in order to do that, you have to let go of everything you think it's supposed to be, right? We get sick, and of course, we want to get out of the sickness. But if we want to get out of the sickness, really want to get out of it, even get out of the possibility of ever being sick, we have to have a completely different relationship with what we experience as the world and our body. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Yvonne. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was helpful to everybody. Let me pull this a little bit closer so my hand's not so... take another sip of my morning juice. There was something I forgot to put in it. Okay. Francis. Hello, Francis. King, IGP. Is there really such a phenomena as pure awareness? And if so, doesn't that create a duality between awareness and the forms comprising its activity? What am I missing? Thanks. Great question. Pure awareness is not a phenomena. Remember, a phenomena is something that appears, right? It is caused. There's something else behind it, right? Like a cloud is a phenomena, right? What appears to our senses as a cloud is only how it looks on this level. What it actually is a very intricate dance between the amount of moisture, the temperature, the uneven heating of the earth, all sorts of things. So it's a phenomena arising from the nature of the sky itself. Right? Now, so can you say that the cloud is different from the sky? It is the activity of the sky, so it is the sky, right? The wave is the activity of the ocean, so it is the ocean. We simply conceptually see the wave as something distinct from it, but it's a distinction made in the mind that doesn't actually exist in reality. Right? Like separating the tree from the leaves. You can't do it. It's only the mind that breaks it up into little piece parts. That's what the mind does. It's forever creating duality, right? And so, yes, if I make a distinction between awareness and the forms that that it embodies itself in, then I have created duality. But it doesn't do that. Awareness doesn't make that distinction, right? The mind does, right? It's overlaid on top of it. If you think of this as being awareness reconfiguring itself, consciousness self-modulates, right, and makes forms that appear in it, to it, and are made of it. So where's the duality, right? The duality is always in the mind, and it's the mind attempting to understand this conceptually that leads to the difficulty, that leads to the confusion. The mind is trying to take duality and understand it, or non-duality. It can't. It cannot see the oneness of opposites. It cannot see the dual and the non-dual as one. Because even the word non-duality, well, I can only say that word in the presence of duality. So the genuine oneness, the genuine non-duality, right, transcends both. You cannot say it is dual or non-dual. You cannot say it exists or does not exist. You cannot say it is form or emptiness. Buddha even referred to the emptiness of emptiness. The emptiness was empty because they're conceptual models that we're using to approach that which is beyond concepts. Right? And so ultimately, dual and non-dual don't exist. There is no such thing as non-dual. There is only that which is. We have to bring some kind of conceptual description of it in to be able to talk about dual and non-dual. And then we use the words as best we can to point towards it. Words like Advaita or not two. It's not two. It is not two. Right? So you have a dream at night, right? Is that dream exist independently of you? Is it a duality? It is you. It's the functioning of you. I mean, it wouldn't exist without you. But you can see how the mind struggles with that. Your mind is never going to be able to resolve this. It can't. Because the moment you step into the realm of oneness, there is no mind anymore. There's no mind in non-duality, in genuine non-duality. There can't be something other than awareness, which means even mind is an illusion projected upon awareness by awareness. And the mind is the world. So phenomena doesn't exist, right? Because there's the sense that it's something other. Right? This is the mystery of oneness, which Balyani, in the Sufi mystic, said God's veil is his oneness. Because that's all there is. There isn't two. There can't be. And so if there's not two, then there is no such thing as not two. There is only what is. And as you can see, your mind will just spin around this. This is something that just kind of sinks into your heart. Just this simple recognition, this is the way it is. This is the way it must be. It can't be anything else. Right. So the duality that appears between awareness and the forms that arise out of it are like you and the dream you have at night. Are there two there? So that duality is an illusion. It's a projection of the discursive mind on that which is simply not two. But because it sees two things, it assumes that they're not, there's a separation there, that there's a distinction. Like awareness has given a rise to something other than itself. It's created an other. The other is the illusion. Even the illusion is one with awareness. How could it not be? You can't have illusion without something being eluded, right? Deluded. I hope this is helping, because I'm pushing the bounds of the concept. This is beyond your conception, as it is beyond mine. It's beyond everybody's. It is not conceivable, because it's not a concept. Right? Instead of talking about awareness as something other than you, look at the awareness itself, not as an object of mind, right? Because right now there's an awareness for you to even say pure awareness, right? So who is that pure awareness? It's you. So you want to know about pure awareness? Look at you. Look at your own sense of awareness, right? And see if you can find something other than that. Find something outside of that is aware. No matter where you go, you find yourself there as this point of cognition, this point of awareness. This is where I say, make it personal. Don't talk about awareness clinically, like it's a thing out there we're examining. That's the mind. Right? What is it that's examining this concept of awareness if it's not awareness? Right? This will bring you out of the head and into the heart. Right into the gut of being. Thank you, Francis. Love your questions. Hello, Melissa. Hello to you. Hello, Carl. GP, I hope you didn't lose your straw. I have not. I did not. I just didn't. I finished my warm beverage this morning before I sat down here. When you can connect to your true self, why would you need prayer? You wouldn't. Or you could say that connecting with the sense of true self is prayer. Right? So if you just limit prayer to a supplication of me thinking of something other than myself, then you would say, well, no, you wouldn't need prayer anymore. But if instead you just take prayer and you go, okay, well, prayer is this desire to connect to the true self. And as long as there's a sense that the true self is something other than you, that you are trying to connect with, that there's something that needs to connect, there is a relationship there, right? And that relationship made sacred and holy is prayer. And the elimination of the boundary, the elimination of two into the one, is the essence of prayer. Lord, replace me with you. Dissolve me out of existence. Right? That's the deepest prayer there is. And you can see it's not just, it's not just words. You don't even need the words with that heart's desire. Right? So even the idea of needing to connect, right, involves two. Right? Even that idea must be set aside. It must be dropped. I cannot connect with what I am. I cannot connect with the ultimate self, because if I could, then I am something other than the ultimate self. Now there is another God. There is a second. Right? This cannot be. There cannot be another awareness. So this awareness, right here, that which is aware of the computer and my words and the clothes you're wearing, must be that one. I must be that one. Now, take that in, there's nothing left to connect. And now you simply have to deal with all of the residual thoughts and beliefs about others. Well, then what am I looking at? Well, I must be looking at myself. There cannot be anything other than that. And since everything is appearing within my consciousness, it doesn't have any existence other than my consciousness. But this my is not a person, which means the I that I have been calling a person, I've been calling Carl or GP or Barbara or Melissa, is in fact the I. I don't exist. The I does. Lord, replace me with you. That this I, the very I that's sitting here asking me the questions, is the ultimate. There isn't anything other than you. You are what in religion is called God. Right? I rarely say that because the word God is so loaded in our culture that for somebody to say I am God is the height of blasphemy. So don't use the word God. The self. Are you not the self? There's a thought that you are a self among many. But how could you have many selves? How could you have many gods? It would be hell. You'd have eternal conflict. There could be no heaven. There could be no harmony. There could be no rest. It would be the forever conflict. The idea that there is something other than the one self is polytheism. That is the mistake. And if there can only be one self, and I am aware of only one self, and that is myself, then I must be that only self. That one solitary self. Let me read you something from, where are you? Right there. From the Ribhu Gita. Having realized that the world picture on the screen self is evanescent and essentially non-existent, one should ever remain still and blissful in the firm conviction of being the sole Brahman self only. I am that. That's where the name of the book came from. I am that. Does that help, Carl? You can say that desire to fully realize that is prayer. All desire is prayer. It's not just the supplication. Every desire we have is a prayer, isn't it? And when those desires are purified to the point where the only thing we desire is to disappear into that one, well, now it's the ultimate prayer. You're standing on the holiest ground. Until you have dissolved into the one, you are no more. There is no more you. There is only the one. And you are that. Hello, Barbara, in Sweden. The alien space pod. Hello, alien space pod. Francis, pure awareness creates duality because of the activity. So beings feel separate because ignore that they are different localization points of awareness, which is the true nature of the self, the sense of self. While there is added to it, create the veil. And it is, but there can't really be a veil, right? I'm not denying what you said, right? But who could be veiled? What is it that's aware of a veil? Right? It's only awareness that can be aware of a veil. So even the veil is the awareness. God is veiled by his oneness. It is that oneness that is the veil. It is the inability of mind to perceive or conceive oneness that is the veil. But yet, what is aware of mind? What is aware of others? What is aware of being aware, other than awareness? Drop all sense of being something other than awareness. Not someone trying to get to awareness, someone trying to wake up, not someone to become realized. All of those are formations of thought. You already are that which you are seeking. The seeker and the seeking are being watched by the sought. Roseanne, what is the purpose of synchronicity? Is it to realize the oneness of everything? Thank you so much, GP. It doesn't have a purpose in the sense that, somebody set up synchronicity to give us clues. When we are believing ourselves to be separate, to being something other, and that there's a bunch of others that we are dealing with, we see something that we name synchronicity, and it seems to contradict that model, right? Because if everything is separate, then everything's just kind of happening according to these laws and stuff, and that couldn't call it synchronicity, you'd have to call it a coincidence. But when we intuitively see this connection to thing, even though many will deny that there is one, they think it's an illusion, a projection of your mind, then we call it synchronicity. But what it does is it makes apparent it does demonstrate the oneness to the mind that doesn't believe in oneness. Because at its root is the fact that everything is one. And even beyond that, go to the next level, which is, if everything is one, I am that one. And at that point, synchronicity is the name we give to it from the point of view of separation in many. When we go beyond that view of separation, then synchronicity it's simply oneness. It's simply the way it is all myself. I don't consider it synchronicity that my hand reaches out for the for the computer. But if the computer was to kind of sidle over and sit in my lap, I would take notice of that, right? And yet there's no reason why it can't, because it is only the belief that in it as something separate from myself, right? Which gives rise to the idea of matter and all the universe and all of that. And when that begins to break down, and the true nature of oneness begins to appear from the point of view of the separate self, it will be called synchronicity, because that dry absolute sense of separation has begun to wear thin. The same thing is really true of psychic phenomena and knowing what people are thinking and empathic feelings of other people. It feels like a phenomenon. We call it being empathic or psychic or something like that, because that's a word we would use because it's contradicting our sense of separation. As long as I believe myself to be separate, then I'm going to think I'm feeling somebody else's feelings or reading somebody else's thoughts. But if there is no separation, then all of that disappears. There's no such thing as another. And therefore, all thought is my thought. No thought is my thought. All feeling is my feeling. No feeling is my feeling. It transcends all the opposites at that point. Are you following that, Roseanne? So it's not that the experience of what we call synchronicity isn't real. I'm not denying that. Of course we experience it. And it's wonderful when we experience it, isn't it? It's like all of a sudden things click into place. Wow, how wonderful is that? It's fantastic. But I'm just putting it into the right context. From the point of view of separation, we will call it synchronicity, because we'll see things that appear to be disconnected somehow dancing together. But as we grow more into the depth of understanding of the oneness, we realize that this is the nature of all things, that synchronicity is really the law. That's the rule, not the exception, and we've just misinterpreted it. So enjoy it, right? And take it even deeper, because the reality, everything is a synchronicity. We like to call this a synchronicity when we like it. This is not a synchronicity when we don't like the things that have converged, right? But if it's really synchronous, then it's all of it. So I can let go of my idea about it. The thing I knock on the ground and breaks is as much a synchronistic event as when something pops up and suddenly the greatest opportunity of my life presents itself because I just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Well, it's the same thing if I happen to be in the right place at the right time to knock the cup down and break it. It's the same. So we completely lose our idea of there being anything other than that, and we come more closely to recognizing the true oneness and the true harmony of being. Hopefully that helps. Peter in Italy, hello sir. Hello sir. David and Elaine, love and greetings. Getting here late. Shame on you. I'm going to send you to the principal's office. Jay, Sean, you're seeing what's more important, buddy. This week is about I am. This week is purely about I am. Other than worldly questions aren't invading the space today. Yay. David Ellis, hey man, how are you? Enjoying the live show and learning from you. Stay blessed. Oh, David. Even I haven't talked in a long time. I knew him when I was back in Miami. He did the mixing. He did the mixing and for my solo piano album, because he's an engineer and now he's into video and does all sorts of great stuff, and an artist. I mean, you've really grown, man. Francis says, I've heard Rupert say that awareness knows nothing of what the finite mind perceives. Is there a disconnect there? No. I'd really like to have heard that in context, because I know Rupert is very meticulous about how he uses words and expresses them, based on the level of the person that he's talking to, and he's really, really good with words and being clear about his definitions and the like. So I'd really like to have heard that in context. But awareness is only aware of awareness. To awareness, there isn't anything other than awareness. So there is no finite mind. There is no finite concepts. Right? These are just things that are appearing. Right? Right. Without a concept of the finite, take away all the concepts and what is being experienced. Thoughts, and what a thought. I mean, a thought is just a ripple in awareness. Right? Does awareness think of something as a finite mind? Right? There can't be a thing which is a finite mind. So there can be no awareness of a finite mind, while at the same time there is what appears to be a finite mind. This is very subtle, and it's very difficult to put an expression to, because it is a thought that appears, right? And simultaneously with appearance of a thought is the notion of a thinker of that thought. And the notion of the thinker of that thought you would have to refer to as the finite mind. But it's all a thought. There isn't a finite mind. There's only the appearance, which the finite mind calls the finite mind. Oh boy. It is in pure awareness does not even know its own existence. It just is. It is, when you're talking about pure awareness, you are talking about pure awareness without manifestation. Right? Now again, there's never any such thing as pure awareness without manifestation. Right? So we are looking at it, we are looking at it only to become clear, because you can't actually separate them. Right? Like you cannot separate day and night. Right? They're a continuum. But I can look at day and I can look at night, right? And to grasp day, the pure awareness and the manifestation of pure awareness, which is the pure awareness, cannot possibly be separated. But pure awareness is not manifest of anything. And pure awareness with no manifestation is unknown even to itself. Yet awareness is the act of knowing. And there's only one thing it can know, and that is itself. And therefore the knowing is itself. What is known is itself. And the self is what's known. I don't know how else to express it. Right? It is the alpha and the omega. The manifest is the source of it, right? Without it becoming the source of it, without it becoming it. The song is music, without music becoming the song. The music doesn't come from the song doesn't come from the music, because that would make two. Nor does it enter back into music. You do not emerge from the self, right? Because that would make two. So that means you must be the self. Everything experienced is the self, right? So there is no finite mind, there is only the self, even though manifestation may be a finite mind. Oh boy. Very helpful, thanks. I hope that that was. You have to understand that you are at the limits of what the mind can do, right? Because the mind cannot function without without duality. It is dualistic in nature. That mind, when it is seen as it actually is, also vanishes into awareness, because it can't exist without it. So it is the song of awareness, the way the song is the song of music. You cannot separate them into two. Therefore, there is no finite mind, even though there appears to be a finite mind. That's as far as I can take it. That's as far as I could take it, at least now. Maybe another day I'll have more words. But it's good to hear you talk live. Well, thank you, Facebook user. Who are you? I'd love to know who you are. Jay, I've been feeling a little worried about the safety of my loved ones lately, especially with how things seem to be getting crazy every day. Now with the shooting that happened in Buffalo, it's really worrisome to go to the grocery store. My oldest is 4 and he'll be able to go to school in a few years. How did you feel during those young days of your kids? Well, the seeds of what's happening now were happening then too, and I saw it happening. There were crazy things then as well. It's worse now, for sure, when mine were 4, but I am intimately aware of it now because my granddaughter's 5, my one granddaughter's 5, the other's 4, the other's 6 months, and I have my grandson-in-law who's 14, and so there's definitely an emotional connection there that drives it home. On one level, you have to recognize that you simply have to be reasonable. You have to take the precautions you need to take. But we need to think seriously about them. And the precautions aren't armed teachers. That's just the NRA, which is nothing more than a lobby for gun manufacturers. They have no interest, do not have the public safety at heart at all. But so you just take the precautions that you can and use it as an opportunity to not go crazy, not become a helicopter parent. Watch, but at the same time, if you're overly protective and grabby, the child's development doesn't happen. They never learn self-confidence. They never learn their own independence. And they grow up with a sense of fear. And of course, the sense of fear is what makes us so easily controllable. So you can see how the whole thing works together. But I have to say that once you become conscious, the role of parenting becomes way harder. Right? If you're unconscious, you just do what your parents did. This is what the culture says to do. This is what my religion says to do. This is what I'm going to do. I'm off the hook. Right? But when you're conscious and suddenly it's like, well, what's the actual impact that I'm having here? How do I bring them up to be free and creative and self-expressive and at the same time be protected in a world that's gone nuts? It's not an easy question to answer. And it can only be answered by somebody who is diligently themselves working on clarifying their own sense of what is real. Now, taking that one step further, we have to recognize that our children are also manifestations of the self. They are the self. And therefore, they are not helpless. We cannot think of them in terms of these tender little psychological things that we can screw up. Right? Because they're not. Right? We have to take everything that is in the reach of our consciousness, right, and reconnect it back to its source, right? So that we see that even our children are the manifestation of the self, which means they come complete. They come batteries included. They do not need to be coddled, right? Then you see yourself as fulfilling the functioning of the self, nurturing and nourishing itself, its own manifestation. And you kind of hook up to the images of the goddess, the mother love energy, and you become the manifestation of it, and the father protective energy. But you don't see it as something I'm here and they're over there. There is this oneness to it, that the family unit is a singularity expressing the reality of the self. And now at this point is no other. Right? It is one manifestation, one thing. a long, long time ago. God, not that long after my experience on the bridge, as my spirituality was developing. I was practicing spiritual healing, and it's a whole story in and of itself. But I got this call from somebody one day, and their dog had puppies, but was refusing to feed them. Was referring to just refusing. Just left them alone. Left them to die, basically. Just refused to allow herself to be suckled. And obviously, the owner of the pet was very, very concerned. What are we going to do, right? So she called me to pray for them. As I started praying for them, and I started looking at it, it became really clear that unity of being, that it wasn't a dog and a bunch of and a bunch of pups and a person, all separate, that were like trying to figure each other out. And I saw all of them as this oneness in manifestation. And that love, which was God, was the love of the mother, the love of the pups, the love of the person, it was one thing manifested as many. I wasn't much later, I got a call back saying she just walked over and started doing it. The whole thing just completely turned around. Why? Because I saw the oneness of it. I didn't see it as being distinct, and I could not see the mother or the pups separated from this essential love, which love is God, and the effect was immediate and total. So this is the kind of thing to transcend the idea that there's a bunch of different players being influenced here, to see that everything you're seeing is the manifestation of this one. And this is where the sense of a finite mind disappears, right? Love doesn't see anything other than love. Love doesn't see hate, right? It's extremely difficult to try to conceive that, but to sense that everything is a manifestation of that one, it just kind of calms the whole system. It calms everything, and completely redefines your relationship with your children, and takes them out of the realm of being these completely vulnerable, weak little things, to being they are the manifestation of the self, just as much as you are, just as much as the sage is. In fact, they're closer to the sageness than you are. They have the opportunity to realize it consciously, and because you're their father, they're going to have a lot easier time of it than you did. So, hope that helps you there, Jay. Dale, hello, how are you? Just a little home late. Hope you're having a good Sunday, and happy to be here with you. So glad to have you. Sissy, hello, Sissy. God lives within us all. We are created in the image of our Almighty God. Yes. And now go beyond that, so that there's not a you that was created by God, but God is manifesting himself as you, and there is no you. This is the mystical view. Your view, I don't know you, so your view could either be could be a traditional Christian view. It could be more of a New Thought view, that man is the image of God, and therefore is the perfect manifestation of God. But you can even go further than that there's nothing but God. God alone is. This is the mystic's view, the Christian mystic. To even put it the way Christ put it in the Gospel of Thomas, he said, "He who drinks of my mouth shall become as I am, and I shall be he." Now there's no separation in that. That's a mystical statement. That isn't, they shall be as I am, and I shall be he. That is, the separate self, that person, even the man made in the image and likeness of God, disappears, and all there is God. That the image of God can only come from God, and an image is simply a reflection. The image is not a substance in and of itself any more than your image in the mirror is. It's a perfect likeness, but it has no objective existence. All there is the original. So God alone is. The prophet said, he who knows himself, he who knows their self knows their Lord, because they're one. You disappear into the arms of God, right? And you cease to exist, right? Because you never really did exist. All that's ever been is God. God alone is. Perhaps that's here for you to hear. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Good evening, Merck. Good to see you. Carl, the nuns taught me how to pray in good old Catholic Ireland. Just to say, I'm glad I found you, GP, and thank you for your amazing ability to crack that tough nut. No easy feat. No, it isn't. The weight of the Catholic Church, which was the Church of Rome, we have to remind ourselves. It was the church created by the Roman Empire for the purposes of the Roman Empire, and it did such a damn good job that it's outlasted the Roman Empire by 1,200 years, and it is still influential. The Roman Catholic Church, up through the medieval period, really up until maybe the 17th century. I mean, the kings of countries still had to defer to the Pope and get permission of things. That's why Henry VIII started his own church, so he could get divorced, because he couldn't get permission from, kind of began the beginning of what would eventually become the Protestant. But that influence is still in governments. And now it's even worse. With the evangelical movement in the U.S., which I think it was in the 1920s that the Southern Baptist Convention, which formed what is now known as the evangelical, Pentecostal kind of view of Christianity, which has been becoming dominant. In the 1940s, after World War II, there was another huge convention, the whole Southern evangelical movement, that laid out a comprehensive plan for literally taking over the United States government, getting through media, bookstores, radio stations, TV stations, which they have all successfully done, to the point where they're now incredibly influential. Incredibly influential. Somebody just wrote a book recently. I don't know if it's recent. I just heard about it recently, called Jesus and John Wayne. It's a brilliant. She's a Christian who's been kind of studied the evangelicals and how the conflating of right-wing ideology and Christianity that has created this bastardization, really, of Christianity, and at the root of it is the idea of original sin, that you were born in sin. The ego was born in sin, but you are not. And the word sin, it's funny. The word sin originates from the Hebrew word. I don't remember what the word actually is, but it simply means to miss the mark. And it was used in archery. You missed. You sinned, right? Now, I said you sinned. You can feel the impact of that word because of the meaning that it has now. Right? But it originally simply meant, oops, correct course, nothing more. And now this original sin becomes, you were condemned at birth because of something your parents did, right? Not you. You didn't even do anything. And so it was the church, and still is the church, although they mask it differently, that hands out the forgiveness. I mean, this makes us eternally children, and and the punishment is eternal, right? That somehow this, whatever you could humanly do, would deserve a punishment that would be forever. Right? Talk about the punishment not fitting the crime. But that's kind of it, you know. You either do it by this date or you're done. And all it does, and the only reason it exists, is to create fear and to control. That is the only reason it existed. It was why it was created, and it's the only reason it persists. It persists now. But yet, so much we have all been through this entire culture, and it's getting worse with the evangelicals, been inculcated and enculturated into this idea that it lives in our bodies and our psyches without, even though we consciously deny it and know it's not true. Even say it's not really true. Something inside go, oh, what if it is? Right? That's how deeply programmed into it, how diabolical it is. So I'm happy to do my part to undo it, to show what was really meant by the revelations that were in the Bible. Right? That the Bible is a book of myths and stories. There's no evidence that any of it, that very little of it actually existed. Some of the names and places were towns and cities that actually existed, but the stories were not true. They were not meant to be history. They were meant to present spiritual, transcendent ideas that would help direct people, that would help lead people inward, lead people to a higher sense, just the way that all Aboriginal cultures were told through stories, right? Native Americans and Australians and everywhere where you find native, you know, in South America, North America, you find these things were communicated through stories, through myths and through legends. Only in the Indian tradition do you find the Vedas, you find it articulated as a philosophy. Only there. And out of there, of course, came Buddhism, which articulates it as a philosophy. And the rest of the world, it was articulated as stories and parables. Only in the India do you get the Vedas, then the Upanishads, and then the whole thread of Advaita Vedanta, and a whole language that could actually give expression to this kind of non-dual inquiry and articulate it. Right? I remember when I first ran across it, I went, what the hell? Why didn't I find you in the first place? Here I'm digging through all these stories and stuff, getting to the meaning, and I mean, it was fun. It was a great thing and very revelatory, all the things I discovered. And then all of a sudden I read I Am That, and then I started Ramana, I started reading Shankar, and I read, God damn! They just said it! The Buddhist sutras, and I was like, oh my God. I didn't realize that even existed. And of course, the language Sanskrit was developed for that very purpose, whereas the rest was all, you know, stories and myths that had to be sorted out. And there was just the nature of it. So I'm kind of wandering off, I guess, on a tangent. But I have found it helpful, having gone through many years of that kind of a mythological or symbolic study of the Bible and the stories and the characters in it and the like, that it's been very helpful in liberating people from the horrific damage that has been done and is still being done. I've had several students, many are here, probably here on Satsang, who came out of this evangelical background, either Catholic, in the strict Catholicism, or Baptist, or Pentecostal, or one of those. And more and more are beginning to see through it, for what it actually is. And so, but enough of that. Enough of that. Hey, Roberto, good to see you. Good to see you. Let's see. Roseanne said, yes, that does help. Actually, it helps perfectly. Oh, so good, so good, so good. Francis King, you and Rupert are equally articulate and brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very, very much. That's good to hear because I do admire him. He's, yeah. I love the fact that he takes the time to be that precise. So does Francis Lucille. So does Muji, Ajishanti. All the ones that I actually honor. And of course, Muji is my teacher. And so did Ramana, going all the way back to Ramana, who would work on different levels all the time, depending on who he was talking to. I mean, he would start with silence, right? If that didn't communicate, he would go down to self-inquiry and who am I? And if that didn't work, he'd go down to meditation. He'd go down to I mean, even told somebody to read the Ribhu Gita, and they came back and said, I don't understand a word of it. He says, doesn't matter, just keep reading it. You don't have to understand it. Just read it. I've got so many things going on right now. A bunch of workshops I'm planning and a whole campaign to launch them. But I really, really want to do a whole workshop, maybe a series just on the Ribhu Gita and on Know Thyself from Balyani, the Sufi master. Wolfgang Felix, follow instrumental music. No more words are needed. I agree. I write instrumental music. It is, but words are needed. It's not the exclusion. If they weren't needed, the sages wouldn't use them. Even Ramana, who was known as the silent sage, used them. Self-inquiry requires words to direct it, to go beyond words. So we do need words. We also need music and dance. And dance. So what about Adam and Eve's story? Was original sin actually the sin of self-consciousness? It's very relevant. Let's see, how much time do I have? Adam and Eve is such a poignant and pregnant story. It represents childhood. It represents our loss of innocence. You could see Adam and Eve as just our innocent children, who we start to partake of the world around us, and within us arises the sense of a separate self, which is that sense of a fall, which every child experiences. All child starts as completely undifferentiated consciousness, like a dog, right? There's not this or that. There's no concepts. There's nothing. It is just this pure field of experience, right? Which is almost impossible for us to even imagine now because we've so conceptualized it. I'm using words to point to things because we can't see it without the words, to try to go beyond the words to this just complete undifferentiated field of awareness, which is where the child is. But the child then eats of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. That is the fruit of dualities. Me, other, separate self. And the first thing that Adam and Eve experience after that is shame and fear. Foomp, that's what arises. The tree, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Right? And that's what it represents. It is the tasting of duality. And then there was the fall. Right? This is the fall. And so it's a symbol of what has happened to every single one of us. The original sin was the missing of the mark. But the thing is about it is it had to happen. The child, if that doesn't happen, remains the child, like a dog remains the dog, right? The dog never wakes up to their true self. They never question their programming. They never question their conditioning. We do. Right? There's another element here, and we have to fall from it because the recapturing of the undifferentiated consciousness, right, after the experience of the duality integrates the dual and the non-dual, and then you get the sage. Right? And so the story of Adam and Eve unfolds over time to Christ, which they call the second Adam, right? So as the symbolic, it is the realization, right? The transcendence of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the eating of the tree of life. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So it was the sages, the wise ones, perceived this as a function of human life. It wasn't a mythical story. It wasn't about creation. They were perceiving something in human nature, in the human experience. Right? And they put it into that form. At least that's where, I don't know, I didn't know them, I didn't write them. This is what I'm kind of assessing where they came from. They could also have been just kind of dream material that the people who wrote them down didn't even understand them. It could be like that. But they sensed the truth of it, yet did not see the full implications of it because they simply didn't have the knowledge at the time. Yet we see in the Hindu tradition, they did understand it. Buddha refers us to projection, the projection of the mind. Right? That the world is nothing but the projection of the mind, that the world does not exist. It is only an image in the mind. And then he goes too far to say that the mind does not exist. Nothing exists at all, he said, and these are nothing but words. Wow. Wow. So that original sin is an original missing of the mark that had to happen. That was the plan. We were never meant to stay in Eden. Right? The talking serpent. What is the serpent? The serpent represented resurrection. It represented rebirth. It represented immortality. It represented the shedding of the skin. Right? They were invited in to the death, because it said, he who eats of that tree will surely die. Of course, obviously they didn't die. He had to kick them out. So did he lie about that? He invited them into the death. The death of that sense of the undifferentiated consciousness. We had to die to that experience to be reborn, right, in the fullness of it. We had to die to the child, right? So we did die through that separation. We died to the innocence. We died to that spectacular wonder and all of it, and took on all of this stuff, all of this skin, which we then had to shed. That's why it was the serpent that invited us into this journey. It's a beautiful, incredibly beautiful story when it's seen in its true light. When it's presented as historical fact, it is the epitome of ignorance, of stupidity, of willful stupidity. And I just cannot say enough harsh words about evangelicals, because they're no longer people who are just wanting their own religious tradition. They just want freedom. Even the Puritans, the people who originally came over here from England, they just wanted freedom for their religion. Of course, then they killed off the Native Americans and the like, but that's a whole other story. But these evangelicals don't. They want us living under their rule. They are dangerous. They are quite dangerous and quite influential. They really feed to the whole right wing fascism. Chris Hedges calls them Christian fascists, and refers to it as blasphemy. What they're doing, it is blasphemy. It has nothing to do with Christianity, and they are fascists. Sissy, thank you, and I'm glad I found your channel. Oh, you're very welcome, Sissy. You're very welcome. Yes. I think you're the one who made the comment, yes, about the God within us, yeah. Yeah, to become one with that. It's the, Lord, replace me with you. It's the simplest and most beautiful mystic prayer. We need live music night from you sometime. Creative. So is fear and shame natural? It is the natural, inevitable result of the arising within us of the assumption, the deeply held conviction of being a separate self. I am the body. And it is inevitable that out of that will arise fear and shame. Now, that's good, because if it didn't, I would be forever stuck in the sense of separate self, because there'd be nothing telling me something was wrong. But the fact that we now experience fear of lack, fear of dying, fear of humiliation, fear of rejection, and this primordial existential shame, because we experience suffering, something inside us seeks the answer to suffering. So the fall had to happen, the consequences of it had to happen, and all of that is what opens the door to the eventual transcendence of it, where we go completely beyond the beyond the beyond. We've gone completely beyond all opposites, and you emerge at the other side as the one, as the Buddha, the awakened one, the sage, the true self, embracing everything as yourself. So yes. Adam, I can't pronounce your last name, Siazir? Hey GP, I'm following you for a while. Very nice and useful heritage you are leaving behind every time. Well, thank you very much. Well, I know there is nothing, just is, that, exactly that. How can one experience the one with a highly creative mind? Well, okay, let's start. I'm following you for a while. Let's see. I know there is nothing. It's cold in my place. I don't turn the heat on I don't want to turn the heat on during the day. It's cold, so I have a blanket. No, I'm not imitating Muji, my teacher, who always seems to have a blanket on, even when it's 100 degrees. I know there's nothing. There is nothing. It just is. Just is. That. Exactly that. How can one experience the one with a highly creative mind? Right? Well, the one that seeks to experience the one is the one. This is the. Notice you're thinking of yourself as one, and that this other one is kind of this special state, right? The creative mind, right? Now, let's take mind out of the picture, because mind's just a word to describe thought, right? Not to describe, but to summarize thought. I mean, without thoughts, is there a mind? Right? So mind is a word for functioning, for an activity, for something that's happening. And in this case, the creative mind is creative thoughts. And there's a lot of creative people there. There's a lot of artists listening on this, and that's where I got my start. I mean, I live for creativity, and still do. I mean, the satsangs are all creative. I don't plan anything. It's just what's going to spontaneously come to mind. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from a mind? Is there a mind there that is being creative? Right. Or is a mind a word we added later, right, to give us a word to sum up this flow of thoughts that we recognize as creative? Well, what recognizes them as creative? They don't. Something recognizes this flow. So where are these thoughts arising from? Are they not arising from the one? The one. There can't be anything else. So these must be arising from that one and are in fact the very nature of that one. So the reality is you are always experiencing the one. Sometimes you experience the one as, just watching, just zoning out on. Okay. And now you are all messed up. You. You're okay. You. That's before dill. And, oh, Jesus. Pull you over some more. So I can actually turn you in the right direction. Alright, Buddha. Live. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, hello there. Sorry about that, everybody. What happened is my computer died. It just stopped. So I had to kind of reconfigure a bunch of stuff and and get and get back on the air again. Oops, you're not gonna be able to hear me yet, are you? Hold on. There we go. Okay. Settings, audio, Scarlett, test. Test. Okay. I normally go through this before I talk to anybody. Okay. I am so sorry about that. My computer died, and I had to reconfigure a bunch of stuff to plug it back in, and it took a second before it came back up again. And then I had to redo the sound. That was good. Total blackout, yes. Okay, and then there was silence, the language of God. You guys are great. Let's see. So where was I? Right. So there isn't a creative mind. Mind is simply a word that we use to describe the creativity of the one. Right? Infinitely creative. I mean, consider music and all the different kinds of pieces and songs and forms and renditions and arrangements over time, and you go, wow, music is is inexhaustible. Right? It's an inherent intelligence. We want to think that it emerges from me, from a particular person, because of the sense of separation, but it doesn't. So there's this flow of creativity. We then think of it as a mind. We create a word, mind, to generalize or abstract something that, a very complex set of functions, right? So we say a cloud, but a cloud is, what is a cloud? It's temperature and moisture and all sorts of different conditions and uneven heating of the earth and and altitude. All of these things combine to make the phenomena, the appearance of a cloud. But we don't describe every last bit of it, right? We don't describe the air and the temperature and all of this sort of. We just say cloud, and we all know what it means. The same thing with mind. Mind is simply the functioning of the thinking happening, thoughts going. And thoughts and the actual self-validating experience that we all watch thoughts go by. Right? Where do those thoughts come from? When we use the word mind, we think, oh, creative mind, as if there's a thing that is stimulating thoughts. But the word mind came after the thoughts, and it's a description of and a kind of summing up of thoughts. Where are those thoughts actually originating from? Even the word thought is a thought. It's a word to describe the phenomena. What's the phenomena? And to whom is the phenomena appearing? The phenomena is this thing we call creative thought. I have to call it a thought. But take the word thought away, and there's an experience there that's a pure experience. What are you experiencing? Yourself. The self experiencing the self. So how can one experience the one? Only the one can experience the one. Because if there was another, then there wouldn't be one, there'd be two. So the one is experiencing the one, experiencing its own creative power, its own intelligence. Because it is intelligent. It is not stupid. So the one experiencing is the one. And you can see it's just a thought that says there's another. And then it says, well, okay, if I was that one, well, then I would be, in the midst of all this creativity, the one gets obscured. Well, no. How can it be? The one is the one that recognizes it as creative. The one enjoys it, right? Maybe even be blissed out about it. Sometimes creativity is so overwhelming, it's pure magic. But who's experiencing? The one is. And you are that one. Does that help, Adam? David and Elaine, if silence is the language of God, then so are the words arising out of that silence. Yes, yes. Thank you for the clarity and refinement of your words, Chi. When the mind raises no objection, all is clear. Yes, yes. Everything arises out of the silence. So what is the nature of words is silence. Out of the silence arises Om, which is the fundamental vibration of I am. And it doesn't leave the silence, doesn't replace the silence. It's, the leading theories about the nature of what we call matter is that it is space vibrating itself. That it is a condensation of space itself. Space isn't what they thought it was. It isn't this empty thing. It isn't empty, and then it contains the stuff that we call matter. That what we call matter is space itself. Isn't that an interesting mind blower? Sound is silence itself. You can't separate the two. Silence and the manifestation of silence would have to involve sound, because without it, silence would be unknown. Only in the contrast do we detect the silence that is behind. only with the space. I mean, if there's no space, then how can you have an object? Space is only known by the objects that are in it. It doesn't even exist without those objects. You can see this. The theme of this oneness is everywhere. It has manifested itself absolutely everywhere, but we keep seeing it as two. We keep trying to take two and make it one. You can't. Two disappears in the one. And of course, when the two disappears into the one disappears as well. Because now that's one, many, everything, nothing, they all just converge into the absolute pure non-dual. Lost you. Almost got the answer. This is funny. Did you get the answer now, Adam? Whoa. Gee, that's very funny. Did you get it now, Adam? Yes, it helps. Thanks. I just don't get if there's one. This one is that, and this one is that. One, what is you? Well, this is where you need to ponder. This is why this is self-inquiry. This is self-contemplation. We are contemplating the nature of the self, not intellectually, not just okay, what is the self? Oh, the self, and thinking of it as to contemplate the self. We must contemplate myself, because everything else is speculation. I don't know about yourself. Right? You don't know about myself. So put all of your attention on your own sense of being, because that's what you know. That's the only self you actually know. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I could be completely a figment of your imagination. You have no way of knowing. My existence, my reality is to be acknowledged, has to be acknowledged by you. Right? You have to be the one that says, that is real. Now, the only way you could do that is if you're real. So your point of reference is always yourself. Nothing other than yourself. So if you want to know the self, if you want to do self-inquiry, that's where you have to inquire. That's where the attention goes. Not to a theoretical one somewhere. How about the one you know? And 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 looking closely, you find it's the only one you actually know. Everything else could be a complete hallucination. But a hallucination cannot exist without somebody hallucinating, which means you actually do exist. If the nature of all of this is illusory, I'm not an illusion. This is the self that needs to be inquired into. Not an abstraction, not a theoretical pure awareness or consciousness, but the self that you know, the self that is hearing these words right now. That is the self to inquire into. See, I just don't get, if there's one, this one is that one, what is you? Right? Yes, there can't be a you. If this one is that one, well then there's this one. And what I'm looking at, even though I don't understand it, is myself. Somehow it's myself. Like a dream at night. Every night you have a dream, and it's all you. We don't think anything of it, especially when we wake up. Oh, yeah, it was all me. Every character, every word, every voice, every face, it was all me. Right? They may look like people I know during the day, but they weren't there. There was nobody objective there. It was totally subjective. Now look at your everyday life. Is it any less subjective? Wow, I mean, this is worth pondering. This is the true depth of self-inquiry. You're looking at the self that you know to find out its true nature. Not assuming anything about it, but let's look at this self right here, the one I do know. What is the true nature of myself? Am I just this form in the world? Well, I'm perceiving the world. I don't even know if the world exists. Because I think the world exists, I think of myself as something in that world. But if the world doesn't exist outside of my perception, then this is just an image of me. It's not actually me. Well then what am I? What's my actual experience of myself? It's not an image in a mirror. It's not a picture on a screen. What do I actually experience of me? There's a sense of my being that's undeniable. It's also indescribable. I didn't create it. It's always here. It never changes. Now you are inquiring into you, the self. The self. Does that help, Adam? I experience the manifestation of one, just an experience and watch it without no free will. Is there any free will in your existence? Just putting aside all the decisions and things we make, because there's an experience of free will. I agree, right? But we're trying to go beyond what is merely experience and our interpretation of experience to what's actually happening. Did I create myself? No, I didn't. Because I would have had to have existed prior and then create myself. So I didn't. There's no free will there, right? Okay, that sense of being that I have. I didn't create that. I'm not maintaining it. I don't do anything to be. Can I find a beginning to that? I can speculate a beginning, but when I actually look, I can't find one. I can find memories. My memories go back. Right? But was I not there before there were any memories? Did I not exist and then come into existence? Now, you notice, I'm not discounting our experience of free will. I chose to do this, right? I chose to sit here at Satsang. I chose to hang out with you guys. I choose this, right? On one level, it appears that I choose that, right? We can explore that more, but I don't want to go in deeply into that question. I think for you, it's more, and for most of us here, to dive deeply into the self that you actually know, rather than speculating about one and somebody else's self and what's their experience like. Self-inquiry brings all the attention back to the only self that you know for sure. Go, who is that? Who am I? So, I'm going to leave it at that. It helps a lot, thanks. How do you know that you exist? You said I exist. You are sure. I don't know that you exist. You don't know that I exist. Right? But you do know that you exist. Because even to doubt your existence, you'd have to exist to doubt it. I mean, if you didn't exist, there would be nothing, oblivion. So your existence, we want to get to is we want to get through all of the thoughts, all of the concepts, all the ideas about my existence to my actual experience of existence itself, which is undeniable. That is where you are. That's where the truth of you is. Go there. Marie, with a P. Hello, Marie. All right. Thank you, G, for here. Wisdom, love these satsangs. Thanks, John. Carl, thank you once again for taking us beyond. You're welcome. Awareness did it. We can hear you. Awareness did it. Only black. Okay, yes. I have to go in now and kind of hack out the black spot so there's just not this big thing lost. So, all right, folks. No more questions appearing, so I'll leave it at that. Self-inquiry. Inquiring into the self. One of the things that happens when we talk about inquiring into the self is that we start, the concept of the self arises, and we get, our spiritual ideas, our religious ideas, psychological, all of the different ways in which we conceive of the self, and we start trying to inquire into that. But those are all concepts, right? And the concepts happened after you were here. So you, the self that is you, right, was here before any concepts formed. So the concepts can be useful, but in self-inquiry, they have to be put aside. Who am I without any concepts? Who am I without making a reference to something else, right? Which is a concept. Right? Who am I without comparing and describing myself in terms of something else? What is my direct experience of myself without describing it, without making it in reference to something else? What's my direct experience? This is the direct path. And everybody has this experience. You are having the experience of being. You are aware that you exist. Now, go there, that place. When I say, do you exist? You come back and say, yes. Where did you look? Notice, it's not a concept. When you say, yes, I exist, it's not a concept. You're looking somewhere that is not a concept. This is the point of true non-duality, because you are looking at yourself, but not as two, not as one thing looking at another. It's non-phenomenal. It is non-dual. The knowledge of yourself, this knowledge, the direct knowledge, experiencing, sensing, recognizing yourself, is not dual. It is not one thing looking at another. It is non-dual or non-phenomenal recognition. This is the awakening. Right? This self is absolute. This is the true self and the only self. And I can say that with embracing to a certain extent the sense of other, anyone who does this will come to exactly the same place. And then you begin to realize that this is the only self there is. And these are all faces of myself. But not the self that we are all sharing. It is myself. And all are an appearance of me. Then the small sense of self disappears into the one. Lord, replace me with you, which is the prayer I started this with. So we've come full circle. Thank you, everyone, for being with me today. It's always just a pleasure to be here with you. So sometimes I hate to let it go. But thank you all. Till next time. Namaste.